John 18:8. Jesus answered, I've told you that I am. If therefore you seek me, let these go their way. Now, the reason he said that the saying might be fulfilled which he spake, of them which gaveth me have I lost none. Then Simon Peter. Now, you know Simon Peter's a go-getter. Right? Simon Peter want to get out, walk on the water. Simon Peter is going to rebuke Jesus, with Jesus telling him that he's got to go to the cross. You know, Simon Peter. Simon Peter's a trip, right? Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and smote the high priest's servant and cut off his ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Malchus. The C is silent now. The servant's name was Malchus. You know, when I was reading this, studying this out, I looked up the name of the servant. And you know, that name means kingdom. Yeah, I was surprised too. I'm like, wow. Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and smote the high priest's servant. Kingdoms of this world cut to the core for the coming of Jesus Christ and the fulfilling of prophecy from before the foundation of the world, spoken in Genesis 3:15. The woman's seed is going to bruise the devil, the serpent's head, and the serpent seed is going to bruise Jesus' heel. Jesus is going to the cross. The prophetic declaration of that fact was spoken back in Genesis 3:15. Check it out. Verse 11, John 18. Then said Jesus unto Peter, put up thy sword into thy sheath. The cup which my Father has given me, shall I not drink it? In other words, hey, cool out, relax. I got this under control. No man taketh my life. I lay it down for myself. You can't alter this thing. This is the way it's going down. Put your sword up. This is not how we do this war. This is not how we fight this battle. Because we don't fight against flesh and blood. But we fight against spiritual wickedness in high places. Put up your sword. Cool out. I got it under control. Then the band and the captain and officers of the Jews took Jesus and bound him and led him away to Ananias first. Now, this is interesting. Check it out. And led Jesus away to Ananias first, for Ananias was father-in-law to Caiaphas, which was the high priest that same year. The father-in-law of the high priest is who they take Jesus first to. What has that got to do with anything? Well, see, the Romans, in lording over the people and misguiding and misdirecting the people, were teaching and picking their own high priests, their own prophets, their own lawyers and scribes, having them fill up positions in the church, and then they would take advantage of the people by writing all these extra laws, putting all these extra burdens, saying they represent God, when they were really put in position by the opposition, by the enemy. So they bring Jesus to Caiaphas' father-in-law. You see? Check it out. Now Caiaphas was he which gave counsel to the Jews that it was expedient that one man should die for the people. Caiaphas is the one that told the Sanhedrin council, look, this guy Jesus going around talking about the kingdom of God has arrived, talking to people, telling them, don't act like them other dudes. Hear from God. Telling them that you must humble yourself as a little child. You must be poor in spirit. In other words, your spirit has to be contrite, open, and willing to receive from God. They're mad because that's what Jesus is telling folks. Caiaphas say, look, we got to stop this dude from going around telling all this stuff. So we're going to plot to kill him. Now Caiaphas was he which gave counsel to the Jews that it was expedient that one man should die for the people. Because they didn't want to give up their positions. They figured the Romans, right, would come and take their stuff away if they didn't deal with Jesus. They were interested in position and stuff. Check it out. And Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. That disciple was known unto the high priest, and went in with Jesus into the temple of the high priest. But Peter stood at the door without. Then went other disciple, which was known unto the high priest, and spoke unto her that kept the door, and brought in Peter. In other words, Peter went on the so-called A-list. He couldn't get in. So the disciple that went in with Jesus then turns around, speaks to the woman at the door and says, hey, let him in. Right? Then said the damsel that kept the door unto Peter, John 18:17, art thou then also one of this man's disciples? Peter said, I am not. Peter denying Jesus. Right? This is the apostle Peter. The disciple Peter denying Jesus. And the servant and the officer stood there, who had made a fire of coals, for it was cold, and they warmed themselves, and Peter stood with them and warmed himself. The high priest then asked Jesus of his disciples and of his doctrines, or his teachings. They want to know, what you been teaching the people? Now Jesus, I'm telling you, Jesus is, if I could use the vernacular, Jesus is cool. Check him out. Jesus answered him, I spake openly to the world. I even taught in the synagogue. I spoke open to the world. I taught in the synagogues and in the temples, where the Jews always resort. They always gather. I went in right among them, talking to them, explaining to them about the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, the righteousness of God, the right way to be and act on God's terms, the right heart to have, the right calling that is the divine destiny in God. That's what I was doing openly in the synagogues and in the temples. Look at it. John 18:20. Jesus answered, I spake openly to the world. I even taught in the synagogues and in the temples, where the Jews always gathered, and in secret have I said nothing. I'm all whispering in people's ear, telling them, hey, come on over to my clan. Come on out. Come on aside. Don't let nobody know you coming, but come on, I got something to tell you. He said, I won't doing that. He said, I spoke openly to the world. I taught in the synagogues. I came into your house. And I taught in the temples. I came into your temples, where the Jews always gather. And in secret have I said nothing. Why ask me? What's my teachings, basically, you know what he's saying. Ask them which heard me. Ask them which heard me what I have said unto them. Behold, they know what I said. He said, go ask them for a witness. Right? And I said, Jesus is cool. And when he had thus spoken, one of the officers which stood by struck Jesus with the palm of his hand, saying, answerest thou the high priest so? So you got people who get mad because you speak the truth against the high priests who truly don't know God, who's saying they know God, who's beguiling the people about the things concerning God? Jesus answered him. Verse 22, John 18. And when he had thus spoken, one of the officers which stood by struck Jesus with the palm of his hand, saying, Answerest thou the high priest so? Jesus answered him, If I have spoken evil, bear witness of the evil. I mean, if what I'm saying is evil, then explain it. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where it's evil. Right? That's what he said. If I have spoken evil, bear witness of the evil. But if I'm speaking the truth, why smiteth thou me? Why are you striking me? Why are you knocking me upside the face? If what I'm saying is true. Now, if it's wrong, if it's evil, correct me. Show me where it's wrong. Now Ananias had sent him bound unto Caiaphas the high priest. And Simon Peter stood and warmed himself. They said therefore unto Simon Peter, Art thou also of his disciples? Peter denied it and said, I am not. One of the servants of the high priest, being of Peter's countrymen, his kinsman, whose ear Peter cut off, said, Did not I see thee in the garden with Jesus? He's like, look, I saw you. Peekaboo, I saw you. You sitting up here denying, but I saw you. Peter then denied again, and immediately the cock crew. That was the third time Peter had denied. And Jesus had told Peter he's going to be denying him, right? Hang with me. We'll be done in a minute. Then led they Jesus from Caiaphas unto the hall of judgment. We're not going to get through to John 19:22. We'll pick it up next week. But let's conclude here in the next couple of verses. Give me 3 more minutes. Then led they Jesus from Caiaphas unto the hall of judgment, and it was early. See, they had arrested him in the dead of night, right? They arrested him before all the people in the town could get up and see what's going on. It was early. Okay? You got to see this with your spirit. Then led they Jesus from Caiaphas unto the hall of judgment, and it was early. And they themselves went not into the hall of judgment, the judgment hall. They took him to the judgment hall to be judged early in the morning, before the people knew what was happening. But they themselves would not go in the judgment hall. They'd taken him to see Pontius Pilate. They couldn't go in the judgment hall because according to their customs and traditions, they couldn't go in. Check this out. John 18:28. Then led they Jesus from Caiaphas unto the hall of judgment, and it was early, and they themselves went not into the judgment hall, lest they should be defiled, but that they might eat the Passover. They sent in Jesus to the judgment hall to be judged of Pontius Pilate. They themselves couldn't go in. They hung up about their own traditions. And they want to still do their own traditions, eating the Passover, but yet and still, they falsely taken Jesus into the judgment hall that they themselves can't go in because they stuck in their religiosity. Verse 29. Pilate then went out unto them and said, What accusation bring ye against this man? Why in the world y'all done brought this Jesus to me? They answered and said unto him, now here's where we're going to end for today. We'll pick it up next week. They answered and said unto him, If he were not a malefactor, that means a criminal. If he were not a criminal, we would not have delivered him unto thee. They saying we